tuned into WCOM LP, Chapel Hill and Carrboro, 103.5 FM. And I am Richard Brown, and this is The Richard Brown Show. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I know you got a lot of things going on. You're a busy person. I know that I am. I know that my guest is. But I want to thank you for your time. Before we join my guests and have this very, very special conversation, I want to take just a brief moment and talk about the show, what the show's about, why we're here. Well over 5 years ago, I found, I got frustrated with the negative images that I was always seeing in the radio, always seeing on TV, and decided that I wanted to be, not just complain about it, but do something about it. So that began the process for me to figure out a way to put out positive images of African Americans. Now, we talk about a whole host of things. We're talking about health, we're talking about education, we talk about a whole series of things. But that kernel, that idea is that I am very interested in showing that we're doing other things, especially African Americans. But the community as a whole is doing other things besides those things that you see on the 6 o'clock news. So from there, what I have developed the show into is this idea of taking dreams and turning them into reality. And today my guest is proof positive of that idea. And in fact, the two of us together have been working on 1 or 2 projects that we'll be talking about. So let me go ahead and get him to start to talk. And just one sec. All right. Lionel, please introduce yourself, and then let's talk about kind of, what you do and about the art.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Lionel Gentry. I was born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. So art has pretty much been my whole life. I mean, I started drawing when I was in school, so I pretty much could draw ever since I could write. So ever since then, I've been practicing my art, and I got, at an early age, I would say I got interested into comic books. So that's been kind of like my inspiration ever since then. So ever since I've been young up until pretty much now, my main focus as an artist has been pretty much getting better and, trying to do the stuff that I like, as an artist. So let's first now, how old are you right now, so people can get a sense of how long you said you've been, drawing from the moment that you actually could begin to write. So let's get a feel for how old are you right now? Yeah, I'm 25. I'll be turning 26 this year. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, let me see. I would say I was around 5 when I first started kindergarten. I would always draw like the covers on the children's books, for us to learn. So I think that's my first experience at drawing. So, but yeah, it's been a while. So,
okay. So, talk about why is it that specifically drawing or trying to reproduce art was something that you were so interested in, clearly at an early age?
I think it was just my curiosity about how things look, and going back to comic books, that's another thing. That's just something I like personally, cartoons and comic books. So like I remember when I first tried doing like the actual layouts and trying to reproduce comic books to my liking. I think that's just something that I wanted to do. Right? I didn't feel like I needed to do it. So.
What age are we talking about? Are we still like in the teenage years, or you're, even before teen? I would say maybe you were 8 or 9 and you started to take a comic book and try to figure out how to.
Yeah, I think when I first started doing comic books, I was in 3rd grade, so that's around 8 years old, 8 or 9. So.
Yep. Depending on when your birthday falls, 8 or 9. So now, what was the comic book that you did in 3rd grade? And tell a story about when you showed it to people and what their response was to your work.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the book I did, it wasn't like a copy of anything that was exactly anything that was already established. I think I made my own characters up, made my own comic books up based on maybe like Spider-Man or Power Rangers, or like just stuff I had, maybe like toys. And so that's something I started as a hobby, and like everybody else, they'll see my books and my drawings, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. And ever since then, it's people that's been following my work ever since.
So, what were the name of your characters?
Not off the top of my head, because it's been like so many books.
Right, you're like, man, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been so many books. It's out of all the ones I did, I only have one from maybe like middle school that I can remember like the characters and the plot and the storyline. So
okay, so give us that.
That book I used to do. That one was called Trio's Company, and anybody that followed animation or anime or manga, it was based off a cartoon called Dragon Ball Z. So that was another cartoon I followed as a kid. I got into like the show, and so like it was interesting. I thought about it, and I'm like, well, how can I put my own spin on this cartoon? But that's pretty much how that one was.
Let's talk. You mentioned a couple of terms that I'm sure most people are aware of, but I just want to kind of follow up. You mentioned anime, manga, and talk about what that is. Yeah.
From my general experience, animation could be anything like you take like a drawing and you make it to like actual movement, like motion characters. Like you take a drawing and based on the process that they use, you make it to actual characters where they move and talk and walk and sing and everything, and it tells a story. I think that's one of the main things behind any of the animation you'll find, especially in maybe Japan. So
okay, all right. So your first work, well, not your first work, but the first work that you still have is from middle school.
Yep.
Now you mentioned that people were interested in it. I mean, was this mostly the guys, or was it the girls, or was it the teachers? Who was interested or saying, "Wow, that's pretty cool"? I mean, I guess who did you get the most feedback from?
I think it was mostly the students, like mostly the male students. Like I used to go to school with. I don't think it was so much the women, because I don't think many of them like the series called Dragon Ball Z that I mentioned earlier. But I think it was mostly like the male friends that I went to school with. The teachers, they only liked it because it was artwork, and they actually liked what I did as a person trying to learn art and get better at it. But I don't think they would followed it too much.
And talk about your art teachers. Did you get any positive feedback or assistance with particular techniques, specifically in middle school, that kind of said, "Oh, if I did it like this, I could definitely, create this type of look that I'm searching for"?
I don't think, and I didn't get any feedback towards my comic book in middle school. I think the main thing for me was high school, because I think I had a teacher named Miss Drew. She taught me like the basics of art, and trying to learn like all the techniques. And so I think she did what a whole bunch of many of my teachers in the past before her tried to teach me about art, towards my work, about getting better and learning the basics of art.
What are the basics of art that she tried to instill?
Ms. Drew taught me basically like how to look at an object and take details, like for this microphone, for example. She taught me how to sit down and actually draw and pay attention to like the shape and like the form of basic objects. I think that's what I'm like.
Yeah, so help me understand. I hear shape and form, but what's the difference between shape and form? I'm thinking shape is shape. And when I really think about form, I'm thinking form is probably shape too. That's not correct, or what am I missing?
I'm thinking a better word for it would be direction. Like as far as the microphone work goes, she taught me how to like really pay attention as to like which direction like is going, and like how to pay attention to, like how it would look as opposed to just drawing a stick, just sitting out in the air. That's another thing. So I guess direction will be a better word for that.
Okay. All right. So we got direction. We got shape. I'm sure that light. Did she talk about light, or how do you talk about light, or how do you think about light as it relates to the creation of your art?
I think the way she taught light is based on perspective. Like as far as shading how bright something looks or how dark it looks. And like basically in detail. Yeah, that's another word you can use as far as light. But the way she taught me how to view that is just basically like every day. Like as far as looking outside at the sun and how light hits everything, as opposed to different lighting situation, like if it was nighttime and there was barely any light. So I think all that's based on perspective and how you pay attention to detail.
Okay. All right. So you have had teachers, specific teachers, that have been very important in helping you move your craft along. Talk about your own. You hear the stories that Picasso went to certain museums and basically just went through these different phases and started to look at other artists and decide, okay, and really did his own self-teaching type of thing. Talk about if you have any particular artists that you've been looking at and pulling certain themes from their art to include in, I'm trying to recreate this type of art. And in trying to recreate this type of art, I see there's, 2 or 3 artists that do something similar, but not exactly. And so who are those people, if you have some folks like that out there?
I think I have a good handful. I think one off the top of my head is an artist called Lino Yu. That's how you correctly pronounce his name. But I think once I look at his work in comic books from 2008, the way he drew, superheroes, how he drew form, and especially detail like shading and rendering and cross-hatching and things like that. Another one that comes to mind would be David Finch. He works for DC Comics now, and that's another one. That his talk is just maybe more like a consistent style. The same thing with Lino Yu. The other one is J. Scott Campbell. He's really good. So those couple help me look at maybe like how I wanted to present my style. That's another key thing I thought about in developing the technique and the style. And
do you feel like you've really truly grown into your style, or you're still working to get it fine-tuned?
I think I've gotten I made progress, but I still want to get my practice in, get some more work and get better at it. I think it's good right now, but I just want to get better, because they say once you get satisfied, you can never really progress. So you can never really move forward. So
how often do you spend actually, kind of working on stuff, do you think, either on a daily or a weekly basis, to say, okay, I've got my practice in for that time frame?
Yeah, I think I try to do it like daily, if not every other daily, because you really can't go too long without drawing, and then you get rested. So I think practice is a good word for it, especially because I was always the type to doodle. Once I get bored, I try to draw to stay preoccupied. So that's another thing.
So now, what about family? Talk about how family has encouraged or discouraged or just kind of engaged as it relates to your art.
I think my family would be very encouraging, because my family it runs throughout my whole family that we have a good interest in drawing and illustrations. Maybe not comic books, but just the fact that the majority of the people in my family